Jason. We talk about all the different elements and angles to optimize your sales
Mm.
process and your prospect and customer experience. And today, myself and Jason are going to focus in on the feedback funnel. Talk to you in a minute. Well, hello everyone. And as we mentioned today, we're focusing on the sales funnel. We've been focusing on this for the last few weeks
Mm.
because it's that important and there is so much to learn. And I've learned over the years, and I know you do have too, Jason. When we look at the mini conversions across the whole steps and processes of the feedback of the funnel, the conversions improve. If you look after the mini conversions, the final sales conversions will look after themselves. And you can only look after mini conversions by improving and improving. And you do that through the feedback mechanism. So, what's
Yep.
one of your favorite strategies, Jason, to optimize this element of the
Ooh.
process?
Yeah, feedback is massive. Let's go with personal feedback of yourself as a seller. It can be an element of your mind, your mindset, and also how scared you could possibly be in connecting with the right people. Because you might, and I'll give you an example, is you might just get put off by speaking to the CEOs all the time or the heads of departments because you get knocked back. But that affects you from going forward. So the feedback could be from your team managers, it could be from your sales leader, is to start looking at changing the way that you do things. So part of that funnel, I know it's a little bit slightly off, but it does make a massive difference. Is changing your attitude around things, like having a fresh outlook on connecting with those right people and having that conversation. Doesn't matter whether they're the CEO or not. It's better to start at the top than at the bottom because it's an uphill struggle. But when you start to look at the top, it's easier to be pushed down because it's a little bit more social proof. You need to be speaking to him, her, or whatever in that department or whatever. It makes a massive impact. So getting that feedback from your key stakeholders within your organization is a one good thing to have, and understanding what you might need to do, just shift that daily mindset to be, that was yesterday, doesn't matter, this is what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So that's all part of the funnel, and also part of how you can possibly get stuck with maybe speaking to the prawns as opposed to the king, if you're looking at it as an analogy in a chess. So look at the right people in the organization and strategically go to the people that you need to be going, the right decision makers, because that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, no, that's a really good call out, Jason, right? So, what you're talking about, so this is interesting because you're talking about from the people perspective. So
Yeah, of
that and we mentioned the process perspective. So
course.
just to for everyone here, there's multiple layers to the feedback process, right?
Mm,
And there's real-time feedback, as you said to Jason, your stakeholder feedback to
yeah.
ensure your messaging is right. When you go to your customers, you want to make sure you're saying the right things that will resonate with them. But also, Jason, to make sure that whatever you're selling can be done by your business. Because I know I've worked with sales teams, they may overinflate sometimes what they can sell
Yeah.
to sell what they can do, and then it's very difficult to optimize that in the operations, right?
Mm,
So there's multiple. If I we look at the different layers to feedback, so you talk about that from your the key stakeholders in the business, right?
mhm.
And then we can talk about, well, when we don't get the sale, like, so at the very end of the sales process, we can get feedback to know why we didn't get the sale, right? There's two elements. And then once we go through all the processes within it, there's multiple feedback at every step, because you may get to the very end, Jason. You may do the proposal, you may not get it, right?
Mm,
But when you go through your meetings with the touch points with your prospects, they may like you or not like you. But I believe that's a powerful point at getting feedback. During the course of conversations, I always suggest to get 5 to 6 nuggets of information,
mm,
right? And that's all. It's not a one size fits all, but things about what do they like about what you present to them, what they didn't like, what they felt was missing. And if every meeting you do of sales, whether it's a few a day, how many a week, but if you gather that data after a sales meeting and put in a database and standardize it, like with proper just pull down menus, at the end of the data, you've got great, or the end of the month, you've got great data of why your
mm.
either didn't choose you, what they liked about you, what they didn't see enough of. They're all things you can problem solve going forward, right?
So the
You can,
feedback in there, Shay,
yeah,
is salespeople can be pretty lazy at the best of times, and we know I know that from experience. How can we make that as a feedback to make it really simple for them to do that? Because it's in their best interest as well for to making sure that they do that. So go. I know you
yeah,
got an
that's
answer
a
for me.
really good call out, Jason. Really good call out, because salespeople traditionally, and I'm stereotyping
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it is a problem. I work with companies, it is a problem. They just like doing meetings and making calls. They don't
Yep.
like putting stuff in databases because they
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
a waste of time. And I understand that on many levels. However, two things, Jason, what I do with smaller companies help that. I'd get them to check in with one of the sales admin team in the office and give them a review of their sales calls for the day, every
Mm.
day, right? And then someone else puts that in the database for them, right?
Yep,
Because
that's a
they
good
will
point.
say, one of the challenges, they'll say, well, look, I'm going from meeting to meeting. I don't have time to be, and that's fine. Like, address it and do something. So they had someone,
Mm,
whoever's in the office, was they'd phone them in between meetings in the car and put that data in. And then, Jason, once they saw the data, so this was just a sort of proof of concept
mm,
pilot process, right? But after a month or two of this, they can see, well, now, yeah, I have to modify my messaging to include something that we weren't including before. And then, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I'm thinking of they're jumping in there, and I think whether you have that as a weekly team meetup and they present back to the challenges that they faced and the questions that they've observed and the reasons why, if there is a collaborative way of doing this, is get that feedback back into the team and everyone present back into going what worked, what didn't work, based on the 5 core principles and questions that you've said. Then it is feedback. Then they can all learn and grow about what worked. But let's share this as a team and a vanity matrix as a measurement, and then just go back out the following week and then retest other situations and check in with the team throughout the week as well. But I think the main anchor point there is the feedback at the end of the week of what went well, what didn't go so well. And this is continuous feedback on those 5 core principles, those 5 questions.
Yeah.
If we can make that process simple and easy.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. And the whole point, as you said, is to simplify everything
Yeah.
going forward and create a unified approach. And going back to another stereotypical viewpoint of sales team, a lot of the sales at like reps or account managers, they're all very individualistic and
Yeah.
spend like they're nearly sort of self-employed the way they
I was
act,
gonna
Jason.
and, egocentric as well, because
Uh,
the high performers want to be up there all the time, whether they, want to share or not, but they should be sharing.
They should be, but they want to be the best, Jason. So they tend to keep knowledge and information, their
Yeah.
best nuggets to themselves, right? However, again, when you can show that the collaborative approach will help them all improve their sales, again, you need to do proof of concepts. And once you prove that, Jason, they become the best joined up teams. And I've seen the transition from being individual to being the most collaborative team in the business in a very short space of time once you can prove that. Another point that's interesting, Jason, what you were saying there on the people side, you may
Mm.
discover when you're analyzing your data, some of your team are very good at generating leads, right, and knocking on
Yep.
doors, but they're not so good on the closing side, right? So and then you may find that some of your team are good on the closing side because again, they love that dopamine hit of getting the sale, crossing the
Mm.
line, but maybe they're not prepared to do in the hard work in the background. They just want leads fed to them.
Yep.
And you rearrange your teams to put people in their positions of strength and optimize every step of the process. So again, Jason, another way you can use feedback on the people side, because it's all about people and process. And
Yep.
there's multiple layers to this. There's no one size fits all, Jason. It's a data-driven approach to actually get results. And the more you can and again, Jason, it's only as good as the data put in. It's only good data and information if it's good stuff put in.
Let's think about this for a second, because it has to get a buy-in from a team as saying, the more you do this, the better the results that you're going to get. But only if you want to do this to get collectively. If you did do this, you will see some significant results out of doing it. But I don't want to be the person as the leader to be enforcing this for you, because then it'd be a dictatorship. You've got to actually experience it yourself.
Mm.
Then you're going to see the results. And this is your feedback to prove me right or to prove me wrong. But we need to measure this to make sure it's effective for you. But another performance metric, because we spoke about the people side, and I'm going to come back to that in a few moments. But we also need to speak to our clients and our customers to find out what's working for them, as why did they buy from us? And because that's a feedback metric in itself. What were the 3-4 reasons they bought from us? Was it the person? Was it the product? Was it the value? Was it something else that they something just went and they went, oh, they just overachieved. They did something really well for us, and the product was the right place at the right time. Could be lots of different principles behind that, but it worked, and we love it so much. But we want to give you feedback on that, and that's a really good indication. I think we spoke about this a little bit last week. Is when they offer their feedback, or we go out and ask for it as well. But we got to, I think we got to bring it in.
Yeah, but and it's a really good call out, Jason, because when you get a new customer over the line, a prospect into a customer, right? And then you've talked the talk until you got the sale. You got them to trust you enough to try you, Jason, right?
Mm,
Now you got to walk the walk, right?
yep.
So, and I always say you got to do whatever you're contracted to do and then some. You can't just do it. And I always do a little bit more than what's expected of you. Lead their expectations and something that you can do often, not just a once off, because then you raise their expectations. You got to always meet them, right? And I call
Mm,
that giving extra value or the wow factor, right? So once you do the first, whatever trial or first job with the client, the feedback then is really important, super important, Jason, because I call this stage gating. You obviously know that the feedback is going to be good because you've made sure that you've
mm,
led that all the way through the delivery process, right? So you want to collect the yes back from them. And again, you can probe, Jason. You can really probe with proper questions, because if you just ask, is everything going well? You go, oh, yeah, it's fantastic. That's not
that's
really
not
good
enough.
feedback. That you
Yeah.
can't do anything with that. So
Mm,
I always like to say, really get specific with your questioning. Go, what did you like about what we did? What did you not see enough of? It's a positive way of saying, where do we fail? Right? And what else would you like to see? Right? And if you get them to answer those questions and they're all positive, Jason, right? Then that allows you to move to the next step with the customer, and then having more open conversations, learning more about their business, about all their other problems that you can help solve and add more value to. And that's how you develop the relationships. But
yeah.
again, the trigger there for me is always that feedback. That's the stage gate for me when it comes to developing a customer relationship.
So the thing that I was going to suggest after that is we got all of this. got all of this feedback from people, stakeholders, and whatever. Now it's action, because feedback's great and we can bring all the data in. But what do we do with it? That comes from multiple sources. It could be from surveys, it could be from reviews, it could be from customer feedback, whatever it might be. But how are we going to action it? What do we need to do specifically to now actually bring it forward into the next part? Because, oh, that's a customer. I'm just going to mute myself and switch that off. But I'd like you to answer that as well.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole point, Jason, is to bring them on that journey. You have to bring them on that journey, Jason,
Yep.
because they have to be able to answer the questions and you have to know, you have to push for the feedback, Jason, because it's the only way you can improve. But the knowledge really, Jason, is in the or the experience is in the demonstrated learnings.
Yeah.
And once you do something, you did it work, did it not? What do we need to tweak? And then you tweak it, measure again. It never stops, Jason. It's iterative all the time. But you
Mm,
have to demonstrate, especially if it's coming from the customer, you
yeah.
have to demonstrate that you've learned. And again, Jason, it's not just good enough to do it. You have to tell them, well, I hope you can see that we've changed. What's your thoughts now? Right?
Mhm.
And you have to ask, because again, Jason, psychologically, if they're happy, there's no reason why they would go somewhere else. It's collecting these yeses. A very important part of the sales mechanism is collecting yes from the people.
Yeah. And it is then it's the testimonials that they give you, then it's the case studies, and then it's the video stuff that you do with them. But again, we have to show the customers that you're right, we've changed, we've adapted to make sure that we're the best in the industry, because that's where the feedback actually comes from. And I think you did a post this week as well about change, but also pivoting along the way, because we have to move, and it isn't a straight line, as we know. It's left right, but we have to keep adapting to the market, and we have to keep on listening to what's being said. And that's where I'm just going to move it slightly over, and we come back to action, because we've got to be listening and feedback from the market intelligence out there as well. What I mean by that is what customers are saying, either about you, the industry, and what's maybe changed, and how adaptable that you are within the industry to just to go, well, I need to shift slightly because I don't want to have that extra vision blockbuster case where I'm always stuck in the same place, without being that creative thinker and go, well, we need to really start innovating and really start to be pushing on. And that probably comes in with action from our customers saying that the market is changing, or the salesperson didn't sell in the right way. But again, it has to come back with action to say that we are pivoting, we are moving forward, we are moving forward with the times, we are using digital technology, we are doing something just to make sure that the customer's perception is that we're moving forward and we are changing, and we are speaking the language of them, because it's all about them and their customers as well, and how we can make that impact. And that all comes with coming back to us and how we can think about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. And you've no choice but look for the opportunities to innovate in this world. You have
Mm,
to stay or you have to stay ahead of the curve, right? So I also like to bring my customers involved in this, Jason, because once you start looking at that market information and seeing what the evolution of services requirements, then you go to one of your trusted customers, go, look, we're seeing this in the marketplace. How about if we offered you X, Y, or Z? How would that sound?
mm,
And here's the thing, Jason. It's great when you ask them because they feel really important in your eyes. You're asking them. And then you go to the next level. Now, how about we do a pilot? How do we
mm,
work on this together as a joint venture or something? And we're choosing you. That again is putting your customer on a pedestal that they're going to be the first person to have this new service, right?
mm,
So again, it's a great opportunity to build relationships with your best and most trusted customers. That's the whole point, Jason. It's all about, and I did it. I gave a talk last week, and it was all about bringing your prospects your leads on that journey of like to trust. You've only got a finite amount of opportunities to do that, and
Mm,
you have to use them very well. Even if it's about adding an extra step in the process, don't rush a good thing. You got to make sure you go from like to trust, and that gives you the best chance of getting a sale. And then, as I said, develop relationship and
mm.
making sure you make your customers feel important. You can only do that through feedback. You can only do that by working with them and learning what they like, what else would they like to see, and continue adding value.
Yeah, that's really good point actually. And what do they dislike about the current situation, the current products and services that you offer? Because ideally, we'd be perfect, but that in reality world, it's probably not the case. So I love the idea of the collaborative way and approach. And pilots are a really good way of doing things. I've done pilots before with people and test things out as you go along because they like to get involved in, if they like you and trust you and they can connect with you on all levels, they might feel really special that you're doing something different with them. And that's all about fine tuning that process, that collaborative effort. In that initial stages is if they have a big whiteboard, is there you go, there's a pen. There's a pen. We all have different colored markers, and then we all brainstorm the idea together. And that's also about fine tuning that gives us ideas, but also gives the customer ideas as well. That's why, like in the remote world, is using a mirror board, which they can all, I've done that before. And the mirror board is brilliant for doing that because it's a collaborative approach
Yeah,
to it. And we're changing the feedback because they're already feeding back to us in real time, which is essential. And we've actually got a template for that. And then we can take that out and put that into a spreadsheet database or
totally.
present it back to them. There you go.
Yeah, and that's a culmination of all the work you did together,
Yeah.
right? And they're seeing the journey, and every touch point that you can have that offers value is an opportunity to build on that relationship, Jason. And
Yeah.
that's why feedback is so imperative, but it has to be constructive. It
Yeah.
has to be constructive. You can't, and again, like on even on a personal level, as you said, Jason, like there's the process elements, there's getting the messaging right, but then there's a feedback on did actually the customer like or the prospect like the person? Was there a good synergy or chemistry between the people? Because that
Yeah.
is, full well, the job of a sales rep is to build chemistry,
Yep.
right? And be other people centered to ensure you can build a rapport in the beginning, get them to like you, and then you have an opportunity for them to trust you. But it's a journey. So it's not, and people always dismiss the value of salespeople in
Mm,
business. I always say they're the most important people in the business because they keep the business going, they get the business in. So there's a lot of pressure on people. So their skill sets and their personalities have to be very open.
mm. I always like to think of for the feedback is they also, and call again, and that's going off. I do apologize.
Feedback, Jason. Turn off
Feedback.
your phone.
To turn off I give you a I did this with a customer before. Feedback, and that's feedback to me is switch your technology off. It's happened to me in a video I was doing with a client as well, and my phone kept going off, and in the end I just had to switch it off. Feedback to me is always switch technology off when you're with a client. That's a massive feedback for me. Makes a massive difference that you're completely focused in on the client. The point I was going to make is educate yourself on them. And I think we've spoken about that in brief detail before in the past, but is having your toolbox, do your due diligence about that class customer. Feedback to the salesperson is they already know about you. You already know about your customer. They already know about who you are from your website and your social media posts and everything else that you do as a business. Your job is to educate them in something else that you do to build that trust, build that credibility. And again, a little bit of a cliche, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you have to keep having that feedback mechanism again
You
and
have to
again
get the
and
engine
again.
going, Jason. You have to look at all the different layers where
Mm,
feedback is important on a personal level, on a process level, on a customer level, on a monthly sales review level, on a reporting level. So all the different variables that you put
mm,
together and then develop actionable insights. Because Jason, here's the other thing about feedback. Yes, it's really important, but if you do nothing with it, it's useless. It's a waste of
absolutely.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I always say, it's not just a sales area. I do this with all my customers. When we do a review of all their key performance indicators, I said, "What you do with that? What you do with that?" 80% of them, nothing's ever done. I said, "Why do you measure?"
Yep.
Because it's good to know. Why is it good to know? And they can't answer. And I said, "Like, how come do we just get rid of it and see what happens? Do you miss it? And if you miss it, then let's see what you can take from it. But you only should measure stuff that you can do something with.
Yeah.
And feedback is super important to get it right. So it's not just good enough taking the data, as you rightly pointed earlier. You have to do something with it. You have to learn from it.
Yep. And it's all about growth, business growth. But us as advisors, as consultants, as trainers or coaches, it is. If you don't use it, you lose it. And it's just a waste of time, their money, their effort, and everything else, because it has to be actioned. Something has to happen for that to happen. Like, even when I coach people, I give them an action plan. There you go. What I want to do is for you to do something with it and have your own personal growth or your professional growth, whichever you want to have a look at it. And the next time that we speak, I want to hear what you've done and actually actioned it. And again, come back to that word action. With the tools that you have and all the data that you've got around you, let's structure it out and let's apply it.
Mm.
Even when we're talking about the salespeople, again, they've got all the answers back from their clients and the 5 questions that they're asking, whatever that might be. How are you going to apply it for next time? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to ask a different question to the client, or are you going to are you going to change your mindset? Are you going to do something which is going to make a difference? Are you going to sell 1 in 4? Are you going to sell 1 in 3, 1 in 2, or whatever your measurement statistics might be? But you have to do something.
You have to, Jason. It's like measure some, do something better. That is the it. Build, measure, learn is
Yeah.
the cycle. Rebuild, remeasure, relearn. Iterate often. And you have to, if you're not iterating, if you're not improving, you're moving backwards. And it's the same. I always say that for business, but it's really relevant on a sales front too. You have to keep learning and doing better all the time. Otherwise, you'll be, as you mentioned earlier on about Blockbuster and Extravision, they got caught stranded in the harbor when the tide had gone
Mm,
out,
yep.
and Netflix came in and took their business
Yep.
right from under their nose.
And so
So on
rightly
that
so.
note, Jason, we've come to our time as we
Yep, we
always do
have.
very, very quickly. And so I don't know, Jason, do we have another talk in us around feedback, or should we move on to something else next week?
Hmm.
Let's have a think about this
Let's have
over
some
the
feedback on that in
Let's
our
get some
discussion.
feedback on that. Absolutely. And in the meantime, thanks for everyone for listening. And we'll see you all next week on another episode of the Soft and System Side to Sales. Thanks for tuning